we have an interesting situation on our hands. I'm going to start with this. Did you see this Quickley thing at all coming out of, like, if someone told you 2 weeks ago, like, where the fan base is going to be in such a place after 4 preseason games where not only are they going to like want Immanuel Quickley to start the season, but they will have overwhelming justification and evidence for this being not only the smart thing for like a tanking / rebuilding team, but like it being like just the right thing to do, however you want to look at it.
I didn't see it coming at all. I mean, just based on the fact that it felt like you've got Elfrid Payton and Dennis Smith Jr., and that's how you're going to work with it. And, you know, at some point, maybe the Knicks turn a corner and they say, you know what, we're just going to not so much give up on the season, but we're going to turn a new page. And this will come towards the trade deadline. But before then, you would hope that Quickley kind of made his way into the rotation. And now it's such a turnaround that it's like, if he's not starting, it feels like a letdown, because I don't know what more he could have done to assert himself in an open competition, if assuming there was an open competition, because, you know, Thibs talked about 4 players who came to camp in fantastic shape, and Quickley was one of them. He's clearly doing the work during practice. We've seen him after games when he's played or not, reviewing film on 2 different screens. We know that he's working hard, and we know that he's performing in the game. So to me, it's like, how exactly can you say, well, he did all of this, but we're going to rein him in a little bit because he's just not there yet? Because at this point, I get the meritocracy argument, but from Payton's perspective, what necessarily has he shown that he is that much better than Quickley or deserves to have that starting role? Because if it's a sunk cost thing, he's not making that much more than Immanuel Quickley is.
I was about to say it's $5 million. Like, 1 year, $5 million.
Right. And if it's an age thing, I mean, okay, there's not even that significant of a difference. It's like 5-6 years. And we know that Quickley can shoot it. And we know that Elfrid Payton cannot. And it's really nice to also cheer on a point guard named Immanuel, by the way. So that's been a refreshing thing. But no, it's just he may not be the long-term option there. And I know people don't really need to hear that. And I don't really care. It's the sort of thing where just right now he fits, because he isn't going to be that advanced playmaker, but he does enough, and there's enough passing and facilitating around him where it masks some of that. And that's great for right now. And that's all we need to focus on. So I love the fact that he's emerged. I also love that some fans have gone in the span of a month from this idea of Kentucky nepotism and CAA and all of this. And I know that, you know, he's more Kentucky than he is CAA, but the idea where now so many of those fans, I can't remember. I don't think
I'll look it up right now.
But the idea of at least him being Kentucky, and now fans have gone from, I don't want him because of the idea it's nepotism, to I need him to start right now. It's amazing how quickly that can turn out.
No pun intended. One thing I do want to point out.
I didn't even realize it. This is going to happen.
We're going to be doing it. We're just going to be doing this all year.
The next 20 years, this is going to happen. God
willing. And I think
that's me speaking into existence.
But listen, we joke, but isn't that where, like, I made the comparison, or maybe I didn't make the comparison. I can't keep track of the newsletters that I have in drafts and the newsletters that I have that I've actually published. But I made the comparison that this is so much more exciting for fans and really just any basketball observer, because we haven't seen, if it's Dennis Smith Jr. or Frank Ntilikina, they could have scored 30 points a game in 4 preseason games. We have those 4 preseason games to put up against 3 years worth of evidence for both of those players. And in Elfrid Payton's case, 6 years worth of evidence, whatever,
so.
6, 7.
Yeah, 2014.
Too many. By the way, Immanuel Quickley's agent, it's not CAA, but it is our old good friend, Raymond Brothers. Raymond, you never fail to impress, my man. Raymond Brothers. Was he Mitch's very first agent, or was it like the second?
I think he might have been the second one who got him in the door to the Knicks, and then he went on to the third. But
he was there he was Mitch's agent for like 3 weeks. It was long enough to get him drafted here. In any case, okay. So also, did I point out Immanuel starts with an I, as opposed to Emmanuel.
Well, see, that's why I said it. I was going to write it out, but it was too complicated to have to deal with the spelling that I thought, just saying it phonetically.
I want to get all these caveats out there. Yeah. I agree with you. It is about right now. And when I try to connect that to the decision-making process that Tom Thibodeau and the organization, because I think it's fair to assume at this point that just as Thibs has admitted that he wants some say in personnel and has been given a voice in the room, whether they're listening to him or not, who knows? I think it's safe to say that the front office is also, being part of the decisions in terms of, I'm sure not like night-to-night lineups, but like, might be good for us as a team, as a franchise, to see what this kid has in his rookie year. So as I'm thinking through, like, okay, where's the decision-making process? I think you could easily say that Thibs may be worried about the effect that it could have on the locker room. If he does start quickly, and I guess Payton, here's the thing I can't see. I can't see Elfrid Payton being completely removed from the rotation, because that's where I think you're like, you may run into some issues with some of the vets there, because he came in last year and the numbers, they are what they are. And you can do a whole thing about how they're not truly indicative of like how good of a point guard he was. And he has all these flaws and this and that. He came in last year and Elfrid Payton did as good a job as Elfrid Payton was going to do. So I just wonder if he's like, all right, Elf, you're, we'll call you when we need you. Especially because that would mean, I think, unless I'm missing something, that Dennis Smith Jr. would essentially leapfrog Elfrid Payton in the rotation, right? And is there a world where we see that happening? Let's start there. Forget about whether Payton's going to start or Quickley's going to start. They're both probably going to play 25 minutes a night, which means DSJ is out. Is that where that's where this has to be headed, right?
I guess so. For Quickley, I really want him to start. I think he's earned it. It's at the end of the day, as long as he's getting playing time, I'm going to be happy, and significant playing time at that. And he's showing that is something that he needs to do. The ability to put pressure, to have those floaters, to have an outside shot. What he's able to do with Kevin Knox as well. If you have him off the bench, then that means that you're most likely going to see him paired with Kevin Knox, who's becoming a fantastic catch and shoot player from three, especially right, especially in the corners, which has been fantastic. He was very good from there. He was pretty good from there. His rookie year, dropped year.
Can we just pretend last year with Kevin Knox didn't happen?
I'd like to.
Let's all decide that.
Yeah, because I was looking at Cleaning the Glass, and there are 8 accuracy categories per year. So Kevin Knox has 16. In 14 of them, I want to say he was below the 50th percentile, and the other 2 he was like 55th, 57th. It wasn't pretty.
There's no orange on that page. I've looked at it several times.
It's like a very, very white almost. Yeah. It's not. It's in between orange and blue in some degree. So yes, there's more to be done, obviously, for him. But in terms of Dennis Smith Jr., yes, he's done a nice job defensively. The shot doesn't look broken, which is a low bar to pass. But in terms of playmaking and how you can also be more versatile, I mean, the idea of what is better, really, because if you do have Quickley starting, yes, what is a better option? Is it Dennis Smith Jr. or is it Elfrid Payton? On one hand, you've got Dennis Smith Jr., where you hope to rehabilitate him into some type of player long-term, although that's certainly dubious. I doubt he'll be here long-term. But the other idea is if you have Payton, maybe you can run a better offense because, and we've talked about this before, the idea of what Payton is, like, if he's in the wrong role, he'll be rightfully so maligned. But if he's in the right role, he'll be fine. But if he's doing something that he shouldn't be, then it's a problem. So if you run him off the bench with some shooters, with a rim running big like Mitchell Robinson, if he's not starting over Noel, if you get Knox and Bullock, and maybe if Bullock's replaced by Austin Rivers when the time comes, that sort of thing where you can get players, Obi Toppin, then it might make more sense to have Payton. But for me, it's maybe not so much the merits of starting Payton and the honor of that, but just simply going with fit.
The honor.
going with how you can maximize RJ Barrett and thus your team, because he's looking great. We saw Julius Randle in a seemingly new role. And I think the bigger thing is, and we talked about this around the time Payton was signed, which is how so many of the minutes have been between Payton and Randle. There hasn't been a whole lot of separation with Payton on the floor without Randle. And with Randle, we're seeing him in a nice role where he's not taking a ridiculous amount of shot attempts. He's playing within the flow of the offense, and he's starting to look like a playable guy who can actually contribute to more winning basketball.
It was one game where,
of course, it's a lot to extrapolate on, but
and I went back and I'm watching some of the tape, and there's even some, I mean, Julius is going to Julius. But
even the whole preseason, he's not the guy who's leading the team in field goal attempts. He's got more assists. It's not an indicator of his passing. I know what you're saying.
I think by and large, he's been good.
Right. It seems like he's being reined in, and I think Payton not being with him is a huge factor.
100%. So then that gives us a situation where you have Quickley starting if he goes with this, which again, I don't think he would have run Quickley out there with the starters if he didn't want to, because he could have just sat out Dennis Smith Jr., right? Could have sat out Dennis Smith Jr., could have played Payton, started Payton, and just played Quickley 25, 30 minutes. But he wanted to see Quickley in the starter. Now, that could just mean that he wanted to put Quickley in the best position possible to succeed and give him every chance to be like, all right, we're going to put you in this spot. And if you do well, or basically we want you to do well with it. So we want to try to give you the chance to do well. But I also just, I think he must have been thinking about it before that. And then Quickley does what he does. So then you break up Julius and Elfrid, which is good. You get Quickley with RJ, which is good. You get more shooting on the floor for RJ, which is good. And then you also get Quickley and Mitch, which I think we like. The one thing you don't get there, and granted, we still got it the last game because of just kind of the way the minutes went, is you don't get Quickley primarily on the floor with Knox. That said, if, as you say, you have Payton as the second unit point guard with Noel, Obi, Knox, and a shooter, whether it's, I guess in that scenario, maybe it'd be Austin Rivers. I guess maybe we've talked about the rotation before. Let's just wait and see what happens. But let's assume it's a shooter. I think that's a better situation for Payton than in the starting lineup. Yeah, I guess if I got to tell you though, if I was a betting man, I think I would bet right now that Payton starts opening night. I know people are going to hate me for saying that, but if you just gave me money and you're like, you place on one of these two things, and I'm not saying that that's what I would do. I would start Quickley. I don't know. I don't know. There's something eating at me,
Yeah, should versus want, I think, are very different. Or at least what will happen versus what we want to see happen, completely different things. I expect to see Elfrid Payton have the starting job. I just feel that Immanuel Quickley did everything in his power to supplant Elfrid Payton, and it looked great. What he did was fantastic. Right. So he could have hit those 2 free throws. I mean, I expect better from someone who's that
92, 93% in last year in college. 1,000%. And but the other thing that leads me to think maybe I'm wrong, Thibs isn't fucking around. He wants to win. He wants his point guards to be able to score in a variety of ways. So, I don't know. It's like, again, I'm leaning that it'll be Payton. I just, it's like 51-49 for me at this point. Just, neither one would shock me.